The following video was made by the Dark Conservatarian. If you like it, be sure to subscribe to his channel, link in the description. And a reminder to everyone that anyone who pledges $30 a month or more on Subscribestar, Bitbacker, or Patreon is entitled to have one of their videos mirrored on my channel per month. Enjoy!
Screw it, I'm getting sick of this semi-hiatus.
Live streams aren't going so well, and video editing is like an addicting drug, and I am suffering from withdrawal right now. On top of that, there are also too many spurges out there in the world that need responding to, like our friend Sahil the Progressive Voice, for example.
Like George Soros went through the Holocaust, right? He was a guy who ended up having to help the Nazis in order to survive. I can still say that I think all of his political perspectives are sheer garbage. And it doesn't mean that I'm criticizing George Soros' experiences in the Holocaust.
I think if you actually lived through the Holocaust, you might have a certain insight into the rise of fascism, to what happens to victims of that fascism, to what can happen to families during that time.
And if you're a shooting survivor, you have a unique perspective into what happened in said shooting. But just like that doesn't make you an expert on gun law, you are not suddenly an expert on how you should fight Nazis just because you are a Holocaust survivor.
But Ben Shapiro wants to strawman that just a little bit more.
Explain the straw man, because from what footage you played there, you Ben Stein lookalike, Ben Shapiro wasn't misrepresenting anybody else's beliefs. What he was explaining was his own belief that just because somebody goes through a terrible tragedy doesn't mean that he's gonna take the person's opinion related to said tragedy as gospel. He
continues the lie that George Soros was a collaborator. George Soros, and I don't care about George Soros' reputation, but it's just pointing out the lie that is Ben Shapiro.
Of course, the lie about George Soros was also a big thing that, while it has nothing to do with the subject, it has to do with the fact that he's outright lying to try to prove his point. And this is a common lie that has been, played by people like Dinesh D'Souza, so we know where they probably get all their talking points.
Are you going to expand on that point, Sahil? Actually, no. He just relies on Sam Seder to do all the expanding on the point of Ben Shapiro supposedly being a liar on this point, and he oddly enough doesn't show it in his video. But here's the clip of Sam Seder expounding on his point in his original video.
At one point, he was being protected by some type of local Hungarian official who was charged with going up to a wealthy Jew's estate who apparently had been rounded up at that point and taking an inventory.
It wasn't just inventorying, he was helping to confiscate the property as well, and he admitted to this.
My understanding is that you went out with this protector of yours who swore that you were his adopted godson.
Yes.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jew.
Yes.
And he brought Soros with him because he was protecting him and hiding him from the Nazis.
So basically,
and Soros was there, part of that inventory, presumably.
Not presumably, it was factual, unless George Soros is being an idiot in this clip right here.
Went out, in fact, and helped in the confiscation of property from the Jews.
That's right.
And so this is metastasized into George Soros was a collaborator.
Ben didn't say he was a collaborator, as if George was lining up Jews for the firing squad or anything like that. He only said he helped the Nazis. If he actually used the word collaborator to define Soros himself instead of helped to define his actions, I'd probably say that yes, Ben over-exaggerated, but that's not the case.
Right? He was a guy who ended up having to help the Nazis in order to survive.
If Soros had, by his own admission, partook in the confiscation of property from Jews with a Nazi member, despite how small that menial labor was or whether it was willful or not, then yes, George Soros did help the Nazis to a small extent. So no, Ben was not lying in this instance.
96 people die every day from guns in our country, yet most representatives have no public stance.
Okay, pause it for 1 second. Okay, first of all, 96 people die in our country every day. 66 of those people die from suicide. Okay, 2/3 of all the people who are
Pause it. In other words, 66 people die from shooting themselves, which is in no way contrary to David Hogue's point. When you take a gun and you shoot yourself in the head or you shoot yourself in the mouth, that is a very violent act. That would be gun violence. And in fact, if I decide to shoot myself with a gun like this, I'm going to die.
Well, no shit, Sherlock. Ben Shapiro is not saying that suicide is not violence. You're just not understanding the logic for why he brings up the fact that only 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides, which I will explain more in depth in a little bit.
If I decide I'm going to kill myself with a scissors or by taking too many pills or whatever, my chances of dying are much less, actually. And a lot of those people go on to actually continue to live their lives, get some help, things turn around.
I don't know if you guys know who Charlie Kirk is. He's like this weird guy who's like a Trump guy. I don't know, he's a MAGA dude or something, but he's obviously a substance. But he had put this out on Twitter and basically got destroyed by so many people.
Yeah, I would like to see screen caps of this supposed destruction. But even if I was to see the screen caps of people responding to Charlie Kirk on this issue, I'm probably gonna more likely just pull a Big Lebowski and say that is just your opinion, and disagree with the idea of Charlie Kirk being destroyed on that issue.
Because it's an embarrassing argument.
No, you just don't understand that argument and for why so many gun rights advocates bring it up so often, Sahil, which I'll explain.
The argument of saying that, yeah, a bunch of these deaths are from suicides, so that means that we shouldn't do anything about gun control.
No, that's only one of the contributing arguments for why we stand against gun control.
No, that is a stupid idea. I had actually read a tweet from somebody who said that, you know, I'm glad that it was so difficult for me to get access to a gun or, you know, get a gun because I was mentally unstable and I, you know, might be in the future, and that helps me stay alive because if I don't have access to it, I can't kill myself.
Well, that's good to hear, but ultimately, really, it is his own right to kill himself if he really wants to. Now, keep in mind here, people, do not misconstrue what I'm trying to say here. Nobody is condoning suicide in the least bit. If you're going to discourage somebody to commit suicide, well then by all means, discourage them. But in the ultimatum of things, it really is their own right to kill themselves.
And that's the thing, a lot of people who do commit suicide, if you have these kinds of things where it makes it more difficult to get it, it's going to do two things, right? Some people are just going to get prevented 100%.
As long as there is rope for people to hang themselves with and other methods to kill themselves as well, people will not be prevented 100% from killing themselves.
Some people, they will be able to live their lives longer. So, you know, and obviously the first group also lived their lives longer. So that's like just this kind of very stupid point that is made by conservatives there.
No, what's stupid is taking away an entire country's worth of people's gun rights because a segment of them people decide to commit an act that doesn't invade on anyone else's rights. If what I stated is not even part of the reasoning for why gun control advocates want to impose stricter gun laws and maybe even gun bans, then why even point out suicides as a wedge for your agenda? I don't know for absolute certain if it's because Ben Shapiro believes that suicide is a person's own personal right is why that he doesn't think that that should be a contributing factor for why we should legislate on guns, but I can only presume that that is the reason of why he and many other gun rights advocates as well say that suicide should not be a contributing factor to the conversation of legislating on guns, because really it seems rather silly to be legislating on something when a segment of the population commits something that does not invade on somebody else's rights. If you two don't believe suicide is a person's own right, Sahil and Sam, then make the case for why you think so, instead of being so vaguely dismissive when gun rights advocates say 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides, because that's very unconvincing.
People who are killed with guns in the United States are killed with handguns. The proposals that have been pushed by March for Our Lives students have nothing to do with handguns. They have to do with AR-15s and so-called assault rifles. Okay, so none of this makes any sense on a policy level.
Continue. On a policy level, let's be clear here that we pass laws all the time that are not geared towards solving every single problem in society.
Not geared towards solving every problem, yes, but that's not Ben's point. Ben's point is, why aren't you focusing on the bigger contributor of a problem within the country? And if the problem in the country, in this case, is gun violence, don't you want to try and eliminate the bigger contributor to that gun violence, that being handguns in this case, before you aim to try and eliminate the smaller contributors to that gun violence?
I mean, please, have a sense of proportion.
Keep in mind here that I'm not calling for the banning of handguns here, but that's like focusing on exterminating the small ant colony that colonized the inside of your parking garage before you even try to exterminate the massive amounts of hornets' nests that have accumulated all across your parking garage.
In fact, we have a whole host of financial laws that don't apply to every single possible financial crime, malfeasance that could be taking place.
And then, you know, another thing, by the way, is when people say that handguns are most deaths, that is irrelevant to the point of wanting to ban assault weapons. Because
tell me this, Sahil, is it the tool itself that concerns you, or is it what is caused using the tool that concerns you? Because if it's the latter, then no, it's not irrelevant.
That is irrelevant to the point of wanting to ban assault weapons, because when you can't, you know, when you're trying to solve a complex issue like gun deaths, you can do things that are going to affect certain things.
Most genius statement of the entire year, folks.
If you are to ban assault weapons or full automatic weapons, assault rifles,
they are already, for the most part, damn near impossible to get. If you want to go any further, you have to do a full-on tyrannical confiscation of whatever assault rifles are possessed by anyone else in the United States. Which, good luck with that, by the way.
You will then do two things. You will lower the severity of mass shootings, and you will lower the amount of mass shootings. And that is the goal of it.
I don't have the figures with me right now of what is the total annual amount of mass shootings that happen in the US, but here is an article from USA Today that goes talking about of how the total amount of mass shootings in this year so far are exaggerated. So just FYI, I hope that you are not thinking of some exaggerated number when it comes to mass shootings. Another thing about mass shootings is that they are also only a small contributor to the problem of gun violence in the country. I mean, you only get like a dozen, maybe 2 dozen deaths within a single shooting, if even that. And also there are only like a few hundred shootings a year. So that adds up to be a pretty low number compared to the annual 6,000 to 7,000 handgun deaths that happen in the country. The main reason as to why that mass shootings are so focused on is because it is a concentrated amount of death. You have like 1 dozen to 2 dozen people dying within one single event at one single area.
So if we pass that and we get that through, then that will help with the situation. So that's the whole point. So just saying, you know, most deaths are by handguns. So the fuck what? So the fuck what?
So the fuck what? Aren't you concerned about what is the biggest contributor to gun death in this country? That's what's so the fuck what, you asshole.
There are also other regulations that are going to be put in place that are aimed to lower those. But if we're trying to attack the problem of assault weapon deaths, then why is that a problem? If you're just going to mention handguns always, it makes no sense.
What makes no sense to me is why that you gun control advocates would focus on the smaller contributors to gun violence in this country before you focus on the bigger contributors. That is, at least assuming that your biggest concern in the gun debate is the amount of violence that is caused with guns, or even when it comes to violence in general, because guns don't even really compare to a whole bunch of other contributors to death in the country, like car crashes and whatnot.
So Sam absolutely stomped Ben Shapiro here.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
The amount of shit that was debunked there was just absolutely massive.
You serious?
I think he's a little too serious, Jameson, because that is the face of somebody who looks like that they hadn't had a moment of fun in their entire freaking life. To all of my subscribers, I know that I said that I would be on a semi-hiatus, but I changed my mind. I'll probably just be on and off with the video editing as I try to get my own personal life up to gear, but at the same time edit videos for you guys because I really do like editing for all of you guys. But that's all that I have to say. I'm the Dark Conservatarian. See y'all later. God bless.